Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel. This is Reads with Lauren. My name is Lauren and it's great having you here with me today. Today I wanted to have a bit of a chat with you about the books that I managed to read in March. This month I managed to read 14 books, which I think is pretty impressive considering I also moved house. But let's go through them quickly and I'll start with the non-fiction. So the first book in the non-fiction genre is 4 a.m. Answers to the Conundrums That Keep You Up at Night by Zara McDonald. Almost like an auntie page from like one of those old magazines where people send in their questions and they generally answer them on the podcast, but they had a lot of them and they decided to compile together a book. This was okay, it was all right. It had some really great advice in it, and I think that it was nice to have some reaffirming comments made within the story, within the responses, and it was an interesting book to listen to while I was pottering around the house. I think that it's well worth a read if you are interested in those sorts of things. I really used to love reading those when I was younger, and I love podcasts on self-help and self-awareness and building relationships and ways that you can grow and evolve. I guess, accept the fact that you're human and you'll make mistakes, but being able to look out and learn and appreciate, advice that people give you. So yeah, I think it was really good. This was well worth a read and I did enjoy it. So I would recommend it if you are looking for just a light read with some simple questions that I answered and that can kind of reaffirm or make you feel heard and seen. The next one that I read was The War of Art by Steven Pressfield. Break through the blocks and win your inner creative battles. I did mention this in an earlier video. My new boss, colleague, mentor sort of scenario, she gave me this as a welcome book for helping, with her small business. And look, this is really motivating. It does have a lot of comments in it that I found really beneficial. However, I also really want to emphasize that if you do go into reading this, to also acknowledge and remember the fact that rest is just as vital. This really does preach that you have to work every single day to make these things happen and to avoid the resistance that you may get internally. Whilst I think it's really important to schedule your days and to really prioritize time for your little projects and things that you're doing that inspire you creatively, that you struggle with having resistance to because you're scared of failing or not being able to do it. It does have some really beneficial points in there about that and self-motivation and getting yourself motivated and committed to pursuing all of these things that you've wanted to do that you haven't done. But yes, there are a couple of things in there that I did feel a little bit squeamish about. I think that it's quite general and I don't believe that everything in this is accurate, but I did finish reading it quite motivated. I definitely think part one was the most beneficial for me because it just had a lot of information about fighting that resistance. I think I greatly benefited from that. I put this down and I was like, I'm ready to write that book now. And I mean, I'm in my mid-30s and I have attempted to start a book several times, but I've always had this internal monologue that I would never be able to complete it. So this has been very motivating and I'm looking forward to implementing some of the steps that are in this in order to start making and prioritizing time for these tasks and these things that I thoroughly enjoy, like YouTube and writing. If you do look at this book and you consider reading it, I really want to emphasize the fact that I don't agree with everything in here, and I think that there are some things that if we're taken with a grain of salt can be quite damaging. There is comments in here about Hitler. If he had have pursued his art, he wouldn't have taken the path that he did. I struggled with that. I think that everyone is layered and I don't think that avoiding or not doing things that you are passionate about will in turn make you an evil, dictator. It definitely put a rocket under me and got me motivated to start taking some steps to start making more time for the things that I'm passionate about, which I think was really important. And I think that's the best message to take from this book. Another nonfiction that I picked up this month, and I somehow managed, so I guess you would call me like agnostic / atheist. So yeah, I don't generally lean towards books with a religious backtone. And this is actually the second one that I read this month that it was written by a Christian author, which I wasn't aware of at the time, but that is Girl Wash Your Face by Rachel Hollis. Look, there are some things in here that I found quite problematic, and I did do some research afterwards on Rachel Hollis, and I know that there have been a couple of things where it's been addressed that things that she said have been quite problematic. The thing that really got me going in this is the story about her first partner, this guy that she was with for a year who treated her really, really badly, really wouldn't commit to her and flirted with other people, wouldn't say that that they were together, and she eventually kind of told him to go away. And instead of going away, he turned up with this massive romantic gesture, and then they ended up getting married. I don't think that that's a good thing to be representing and to be putting out in the world. And she does emphasize that, you know, this story isn't for everyone and it's not something that will happen to everyone. But I think that if you are enforcing boundaries and demanding respect, one romantic gesture will not change an entire relationship. So I feel like there's a lot of backstory there that we don't know about. And I'm sure that they went through many years of therapy, and I know they're no longer together. In fact, I believe the husband's passed away. The ex-husband has passed away and she's seeing someone else now. But I don't know, there were just some things in here that did make me feel a little bit uncomfortable, and all of the talk about God kind of was, I tried to brush over it because that just doesn't interest me in any way, shape or form. I did struggle with that aspect of this as well. However, you know, there are bits and pieces that I didn't mind and it was an okay read. I got through it pretty quickly. But yeah, I probably wouldn't recommend this to everybody. I think that if you have the same faith, it may be something beneficial for you, but also take it with a grain of salt like the last one, because there are things in here that I think are problematic and I don't necessarily agree with. I think that her description of her weight journey was also quite triggering and could potentially be something that people could struggle with. So yeah, so definitely think about it if you do go into this one and you haven't read it before, because it could make you angry. You could take a couple of little bits and pieces from it, but generally overall, I wouldn't say that this was my favorite nonfiction that I've read. In fact, you know, I didn't have a lot of success this month with the books that I've read, but in the nonfiction genre, but I would probably say that this is the one that I'd least likely recommend. So yeah. And the last nonfiction that I read in the month of March is The 4 to 7 Zone, An Easy and Effective Way to Live a Balanced Life by Coleman Nocta. This was one on Spotify that I just picked up on a whim. I really like to listen to nonfiction in audio form while I'm just doing some stuff around the house or I'm working or whatever. And this was okay as well. This was talking about how you've got to try and not expect yourself to be at 10 all the time, like 10 out of 10, and that it's actually vital and important to stay in that 4 to 7 zone. Basically talking as if the scale is 1 is like life is terrible and you have no positive habits and you're not doing really well in each area, and 10 being like everything's amazing. This book basically emphasizes the fact that living in either extreme is actually really bad, and what you need to be sort of aiming for is that 4 to 7 zone in each area of your life. I found this beneficial in the sense that we're always striving to feel better, striving to feel happier, but we're also always striving to not reach that down point again. And this was a really important way to look at things and sort of be like, it's okay to be in that 4 to 7 zone. It's okay to be okay. And if you do reach the 1 to 2 zone where, you know, you've brought in negative habits again and you've spiraled back, it's not as overwhelming because you don't have to try and aim for 10. You don't have to be 10 out of 10, you just have to be that 4 to 7. So I did find this really beneficial because I tend to, if I fall down into that 1 or 2, I become very, very overwhelmed because I think it's going to take me so long to get back to 10. And that's always been something that I've really struggled with because a few years ago, like I really got my mental health in check, my physical health in check, and I was, walking and my body was healthy and I wasn't in as much chronic pain as I usually am. And then things kind of fell off the radar over a couple of years, and I got to a point, I felt like I'd taken 10 steps backwards after only having done 5 steps forward. This book was good because it made me give myself a bit of a break and remember that if you reach 1 out of 10, you don't have to get to 10 out of 10. As long as you can get back to 4 out of 10, and then, once you've got every aspect in that 4 to 7 zone, it kind of means that you have that ability to start really working and finding your groove. So yeah, look, I enjoyed it. I thought that it was a decent listen and I would recommend it to other people. I think that it's really beneficial, especially if you haven't gone through a lot of therapy. I think that it's beneficial for anybody to kind of look at life a bit differently and remembering that we're human and we're going to make mistakes and we're going to fall backwards, but it's okay. And that we don't have to strive to be perfect all the time. And that actually that 4 to 7 zone is sort of the sweet spot you really want to work on. Moving on to fiction. And this month I ventured into some more Stephen King and I read Fairy Tale. This was also on audio while I was unpacking my house post-move. And I was really hopeful for this one because last year I read 11/22/63 and it is definitely up there as one of my most favorite books of all time. I just absolutely devoured that, and in fact I want to read it again ASAP. But prior to that, I had only sort of read a couple of Stephen King's books and they were okay. I really loved like bits and pieces of The Stand, but the rest of them were kind of like I could give or take. So I thought maybe venturing out of the horror genre and moving into more of his other work might be the way to go. And look, this was okay. I really enjoyed the start. I thought that even though it was quite slow to begin with, the start was my favorite. I actually really loved that. I loved watching that relationship build between the main character and his old neighbor. Once he kind of goes into this other world, it was okay. It was good. It was good, but it didn't hook me in as much. And yeah, Stephen King just has a couple of things happen in every single book that make me feel a little bit uncomfortable. Namely the fact, like in this one, without giving too many spoilers away, the person that you think is the love interest ends up kind of saying, I'm too old for you. So he ends up just hooking up with one of the other random people that have just been mentioned throughout the book. And that just felt off to me. That just felt really strange. In February, I read Red Rising, and I found that moving from Red Rising in audio to Fairy Tale in audio, it didn't seem to differ much because a lot of it is, the main character is imprisoned. And so I don't know if it was just the fact that I had read both of them very close together, but I got really bored in those scenes. So yeah, look, it wasn't my favorite read by Stephen King by any means, but it was enjoyable, and I'm definitely on a mission to read more of Stephen King's works so that I can sort of do like a bit of a tier ranking of the ones that I've read and talk about what I've enjoyed in each one, because my list has started to grow. I think I've read 5 or 6 of them, and I'd really love to venture into reading a lot more. I've heard a lot of people love it, and I totally get that. And I think it was just honestly the timing and the modality, and potentially I might have done better if I was actually reading it. But yeah, it was all right. Another book that I read in March, and this one was great. I really did enjoy this one, and it is Alone with You in the Ether by Olivia Blake. This was pretentious. Slice of life story about these two people who connect. One is a science teacher who is quite socially awkward. The other has a lot of mental health problems and is currently seeing a psychiatrist after being caught forging money and creating money, and they're not great characters. They're very broken. They have their own stuff going on, but they connect. The connection was kind of beautiful, and even though it was quite possessive and a little bit sort of heading towards that problematic for me, where, you know, possessive and controlling and a bit of jealousy and stuff like that, I think that it was a really good depiction of what relationships can be like. And I really enjoyed the writing. I think that Olivia Blake's style is amazing. It's so different. I'd never read anything quite like this book. Yeah, I really did enjoy it, and I do recommend it. I would probably give it a 4.5 stars. It was a lot of fun, and I found myself wanting to go back to it even when I couldn't read. So yeah, it was pretty good. It was pretty good. After that, I read Kill Your Husbands by Jack Heath. So Kill Your Husbands I would class it as a mystery thriller. So the detective is in a lesbian relationship, so there is a lot of delving into the dynamics of that relationship as well, but she is also investigating this murder case where three couples have gone away for this weekend. At the time that the crime is investigated, only 3 people have survived. 1 is missing and 2 have been found murdered. It goes back and forth a lot. So it goes between the detective investigating the case and the couples that were at this sort of cabin or this home in the mountains for the weekend. And I enjoyed it. I thought it was really interesting. I did find it a bit predictable. I had a feeling that I knew who it was. And I sort of did the whole, oh yeah, I knew it at the very end. And then, oh, like you get a plot twist and you're like, oh, of course, that makes the whole book make sense. It really did delve into relationship dynamics, people in long-term relationships who are struggling with that connection and some of the bad things that they can choose to do. And I don't know, I enjoyed it. It was just a fun audiobook that I really appreciated listening to. I would probably say about 4 stars. It's not by any means like a work of art in regards to writing style, but it is very easy to ingest, and I did thoroughly enjoy the experience. So yeah, it was a good time. I also read Kiss Her Once for Me by Alison Cochrane. I'm not sure how to pronounce it, but Kiss Her Once for Me is sort of this Christmas romance. It's sapphic romance, so you know it's always up my alley when it's a sapphic romance. This one is kind of funny, even though it's kind of insta-lovey, which really frustrates me. I don't like that trope at all. I think that this was a really funny ride, and you know, it's about this woman who meets this girl in a bookstore on Christmas Eve, and they end up spending this beautiful 24-hour period together. Things happen, there's misunderstanding, of course. They don't see each other again for a year, and then the main protagonist is working in a coffee shop, and the owner, his grandfather's just passed away, and he is only entitled to his inheritance if he is married. So they end up making this proposition and working together, pretending to get married so that he can get his inheritance. Then they discover, they go off for Christmas with his family, and they discover that his sister just so happens to be the woman that she had an encounter with the year before. So it's awkward, it's uncomfortable, there's a lot that's going on. It's a real story about coming out, being yourself. It focuses a lot on people who are quite privileged and make the decision to walk away from that family privilege and try to make it on their own. I enjoyed it. I thought it was a lot of fun. I thought that it had me smiling, it had me giggling. Like I said, I'm not a huge fan of insta-lovey sort of stuff, but this was really sweet and really lovely, and I would recommend it to anybody who is interested in a little bit of a sapphic romance. I didn't read it at Christmas time, so you don't necessarily have to, but it could be a very cute Christmas cozy read, or even in the middle of winter if you're in Australia like me, and you know, Christmas here is stinking hot and you just want to sort of feel that icy cold vibes, sort of Christmas in July vibes that we have, because that's what it's called here. So yeah, it was really good. I enjoyed it and I do recommend it. I also read this month Meet Cute Diary by Emery Lee. Now, this one I recommended in my Trans Visibility Day video where I recommended books with great trans representation. This was on the honorable mentions list because I had heard great things about it, but I had not yet read it myself. I have since read it and I was a little bit disappointed. I have to be honest. Yeah, I did really struggle with the main character. He seemed to kind of just be like, I guess, kind of spoiled and indulged. And there is a lot of talk in this about facing that and expressing that, but I don't necessarily feel that it was a character development arc that was successful. And a lot of people, I read reviews afterwards, and a lot of people felt the same. However, this is a cute story. I did enjoy the reading process, but I can understand why people disliked this book. Like, I'm a big fan of characters that are problematic. I don't need to love the main character to enjoy the book, and this is a prime example of that because I did enjoy this story. It was okay. It was a sweet little read, but yeah, the character just, there was a couple of things that he did that really grinded my gears. And I don't know if maybe it's just because I'm an adult now and I have a teenager myself. And I just think the audacity. But yeah, no, I struggled. I did struggle with the main protagonist and just the entitlement that he seemed to feel. His parents just covering him for money and stuff. And they do address that, but yeah, I don't know. Without going into too much detail, I struggled. I've really struggled with the character, and I'm really disappointed because I thought that it was going to be such a great read. The cover was so cute. I mean, look at it. It's so cute. But yeah, it just didn't quite work out the way I'd hoped. So that's a shame, but hopefully the other honourable mentions will be better. I am partway through one and I'm thoroughly enjoying it. So fingers crossed. Also in the month of March, I managed to finish the St. Mary's Chronicles, which is super exciting because this is a new absolute favourite book series for me. I am working my way through the first book in the Time Police, which is the spin-off series I initially started with. I think that already I can tell that the read is going to be a much better experience now that I have gone back and read the St. Mary's Chronicles because I have all of that background knowledge. In March, I read A Catalogue of Catastrophe, which was book 13, and I managed to pick up a copy of The Good, the Bad, the History, which is book 14, and I finished this very quickly. This was probably one of my favorites out of the whole series, so I'm really glad I have this in hard copy, and I'm investing. I am definitely going to get this whole series in hard copy because I enjoy it so much, and I've talked about it in so many different videos so far, so I won't go too far into it, otherwise this video will go for hours. I'm really glad that I finished this series. This is such a great series. I highly recommend it to anybody, especially if you really like time travel. This is a really fun time travel series that is just so fast paced, and there's like several different stories occurring in each book, and it's just, I don't understand how this woman thinks of all of these things, and I can't wait to see what else she does. I don't think that this is finished. I think that there is more to come. So I'm so excited. I'm so excited to keep reading this series. But yeah, really love these. Definitely. I think that throughout the whole series, I haven't given a book less than 4 stars. So yeah, thoroughly enjoy this. Highly, highly recommend. And I will probably continue to talk about this series forever because it is definitely one of my favorites, and it will be on my bookshelf in hard copy very soon. Another book that I decided to read this month, I have decided that I want to try and venture into the classics a bit more. I started that with my 24-hour reading vlog that I did back in February, I believe, where I tried to read classics for a whole 24-hour period. It was definitely a trip. I had a great time. So I decided that, that's something I want to keep trying to pursue. And so this month I decided to read The Great Gatsby by Scott F. Fitzgerald. This was shorter than I thought. I had no idea what the story was about, can you believe? I've never watched any of the movies. I've never really had any interest in reading the book. I love reading about Zelda Fitzgerald. I've read a lot of work on, her life, and, I always sort of thought that potentially F. Scott Fitzgerald could have been taking a lot of the claim that was rightly hers. But in saying that, I didn't mind this book. It was definitely not what I expected. I didn't know what I was expecting going in. I guess just, you know, the only thing I knew about it was that it's set in the 20s, and so everyone was going to be drinking like crazy because it was illegal and partying, and that was all I knew. So I really did think that this was going to be a longer book. I thought I had no idea what the ending was going to be, but I did enjoy it. I had a good time with it, and it's another classical I can tick off the list as one that I've actually really enjoyed. So I'm glad that I read it, and if you haven't read it, I do recommend it, especially if you're like me and you have no idea what's going on. It's nice to be part of the team now. I enjoyed it, and I will definitely be reading more classics throughout the rest of the year. If you have any recommendations, please let me know, because I haven't read a lot of classics. I attempted Charles Dickens and just can't. I can't with his writing style. And a lot of classics that I have read, I've been like, I can say I've read it now, but I can't say it's a favorite. So I'd really love to find some classics that I actually really thoroughly enjoy. So yeah, definitely let me know in the comments if you have any classic recommendations that you think are worth the read, or that you're looking at reading, and potentially we could look at a buddy read. That would be a lot of fun. Two more. So the second last book that I read in the month of March is The Time Traveller's Daughter by Emma Strike. This was a sort of read or unhaul challenge situation, but it kind of has that time travel theme. So I was kind of invested in checking this one out. It is a historical fiction. It is set sort of, she's from the 1920s and she goes back to the early 1800s. It is a romance. It is a bit of a mystery. It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed it. I listened to it in audio. It's not a series that I think I'll continue because there are 4 more books. But in saying that, it's if it comes up like cheap on Audible, I might pick up the rest and give it a go, because yeah, this was one that I didn't mind. I was just listening to it as I was plodding along doing things, and it was fun. It was fun. But yeah, it's definitely more romance leaning than sci-fi leaning, but I did enjoy it. I had a lot of fun with it. So I would probably say it was about 3.5 or 4 star. And the last one, it's definitely not the one that I most recently read, but it was one that I probably enjoyed the most of the whole lot, and that is Volume 5 of Monster by Naoki Urasawa. I really love this series. This is Volume 5 of the Perfect Edition, so it has, I believe, 3 of the volumes, the standard volumes in here. So I've got the first 5. I have to get the next 4 because I love this series. I think it's such a great series. I highly recommend it to anybody, even if you don't like manga. It's a real mind-bending series. You know, this doctor thinks that he's done the right thing. As the years go by, it comes back to bite him in the ass. It's just so good. The kid that he saves ends up becoming this absolute psychopath, and they just end up on this chase for each other, and the doctor's trying to learn about this guy so that he can capture him. And because this guy is so insanely smart and so psycho, he is ahead of him every step of the way. He's constantly got these plans, and it's really good. I highly recommend this series. And if you don't want to read it, the anime, I believe, is still on Netflix in Australia. But yes, there is an anime, and it is so good. It is really great. I really highly recommend this, even if you don't like manga. But if you do like manga and you haven't read this, what are you doing with your life? Do it. Go get it. But that's it. That is all the books that I have read in the month of March. Let me know down in the comments below what you read in March. What were your favorites? What were some books that you read that you were not that keen on? If you've read any of these books, let me know what you thought of them. If you think any of these books are going to end up on your TBR, also let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear about it. And yeah, if you do have any recommendations in regards to classics, please pass them my way. I definitely want to read Frankenstein. That is high on my list, as well as Wuthering Heights. I've read The Picture of Dorian Gray, and I didn't mind it. I think I need to reread it because just the way people talk about it, and I think when I was younger I just didn't quite gel with it, and I might now. I love the story, so and I love the movies, so it should work. But anyway, I'm rambling. I'm going to end this here now. Have a really great rest of your day, and I really look forward to chatting with you again soon in another video. Goodbye, my darlings.